Greetings and salutations. My name is Stephen Coy, also known as XStatykArts, and welcome to Anime Expo Lite. Today we'll be showcasing Vanguard ZERO with a featured match between two community members. Vanguard ZERO is Bushiroad's mobile trading card game based on the popular game CardProtagonist Vanguard. In this game, players construct their decks based on clans, each containing a different strategy and armed with the goal of taking down the opponent's Vanguard. In Vanguard ZERO, each player's objective is to deal 6 damage to their opponent. You deal damage by attacking the opponent's Vanguard. The key is to level up the grade of your Vanguard once per turn until it reaches grade 3, at which point you gain a new modicum of power and skills that can enhance your entire board. Before we jump into today's match, however, we're going to hear from DifferentFight and CardProtagonist, the two players who are going to be playing in today's exhibition match, to see what kind of decks they'll be running. Let's check them out.
Hello and welcome, Anime Expo folks, to the world of Vanguard ZERO. So, my name is Chris, or DifferentFight, and I've been making Vanguard content on YouTube for the past 6 years or so. And so today I have the very special opportunity to showcase to you guys, together with my fellow content creator CardProtagonist, a special feature match using some of the newest released cards in the game, which I'm sure a lot of you will find really exciting. So, the deck that I've chosen to use for today's feature fight is Shadow Paladin. So this is one of the new clans that was introduced in the most recent set, Awakening of Twin Blades, which is the 4th set in Vanguard ZERO. And I'm going to show you what this new deck can do. It's one of the very popular ones. It's used by a very popular character, Suzuga Morire. And so I'm going to show you what the deck can do, and let's talk about it for just a little brief moment. So here you can see what the Shadow Paladin deck looks like. So we're running a few key cards here that I can pull up. So we have cards like Full Bow here, which is a special kind of starting Vanguard, which lets us, by writing Blaster Javelin, search Blaster Dark, basically confirming a grade 2 without even having to start with one in our opening hand, which is a really strong ability. And then the Blaster Javelin has another use that you can actually call him to search your Phantom Blaster Dragon, which is your kind of desired grade 3 for your first grade 3 ride, and therefore have this like very smooth game plan going up your grades. And thus the deck is very balanced in that sense, in a very balanced gameplay, because you have these search abilities, you have various ways to draw by using cards such as Skull Witch in the main here, which let you counterblast 1, discard a card, and draw 2, which is a very strong ability that lets you fuel your resources, fuel your hand, and then your field to use powerful abilities such as that of Phantom Blaster Dragon that you see here. So the Phantom Blaster Dragon lets you counterblast 2 and retire 3 of your own cards to retire 1 of your opponent's cards, and then also gain a critical and 10,000 power, which allows you to push further damage, take out their perfect guards, and just kind of decimate their field. But that's not all, because you have an even more leveled up version of that in Phantom Blaster Overlord, who allows you to essentially trade one of your rear guards for one of theirs, which is a really powerful ability because you always have something to retire of your own to get rid of their pesky intercepts and things like that. And on top of that, you can also gain extra critical and power through his Persona Blast ability. And, you know, it might look like there's a lot of retiring, and we've only spoken about in the main, but you also have cards like Bad Barkar, who lets you call the top card of your deck, therefore fueling your field even more and letting you pay those retire costs pretty easily. So this is the deck that I'm going with today into this very special Anime Expo only feature match. So let's take a look at how it's gonna go down.
Greetings and welcome to Anime Expo 2020. I'm YouTuber CardProtagonist, and I've been a huge fan of CardProtagonist Vanguard since the official launch in 2011. I make deck reviews on YouTube and share my passion between fellow card fighters, and I've recently discovered Vanguard ZERO and have been loving it a lot. Vanguard ZERO allows me to have epic card fights on the go, but most importantly, allow me to connect and card fight fans from around the world. I do Vanguard ZERO reviews and fight on my YouTube channel, so I hope you join me on my quest on getting stronger. The deck I'll be using for this exhibition match will be the Royal Paladin's Majestic Lord Blaster. This was the first deck I used during my debut in the competitive team in the past. It really brings back memories, and I'm glad to fight alongside it again. So, let's have a fun card fight!
And welcome to Game 1 of DifferentFight vs. CardProtagonist in their Vanguard ZERO exhibition set. DifferentFight will be piloting Shadow Paladin and CardProtagonist Royal Paladin, as we saw. And these two clans are kind of the antithesis of each other, where Royal Paladin likes to build the board to support the Vanguard. Shadow Paladin tends to attribute their units to empower the Vanguard. We're seeing that DifferentFight's going to be putting back a Blaster Dark and a Dark Dictator, neither of which you really needs, especially the Blaster Dark, since he does have a Blaster Javelin, which will allow him to search for Blaster Dark when riding it over Full Bow. He has ways of filtering out the rest of his right chain, but these right chains tend to be very consistent because of that. We will be grabbing the Blaster Dart from his deck and sitting at an 8k body, which is going to make it very difficult for CardProtagonist to respond without committing a little bit more to his attacks to do so. He'll be calling Arian Rod, who has an ability that will filter away the Dark Dictator, which he definitely won't be needing as much as the intercept he just gained from discarding it. In response, CardProtagonist will be riding Lee N, who you generally want to see going first. It has a skill similar to Arian Rod to filter a new card by resting itself, but when it's on Vanguard, you give up your attack to do that. So it's not a problem though, so he will still be able to attack with a boost from the Wingwall Brave, who was called off from Forerunner, and hitting that heal trigger first, even though he won't be healing any damage, will still give a power boost to make him push the attack through. And in response, DifferentFight will be checking a heal trigger of his own. Neither of these players are going to be seeing a heals on their first check because neither of them had damage on their checks, so I guess this -1 for both players. Riding up to Blaster Dark here, we get this beautiful cutscene and animation as Blaster Dark enters board. The 10,000 power body sitting over that Blaster Javelin. He's now going to be able to use Arian Rod once again to get some more pieces in his hand. And he's drawing the Badab card, but I can kind of see him not choosing to really commit or attack here. And he does choose to skip his turn, which is really good against Royal Paladin, at least this deck, as you don't want to give them free damage to allow them to resolve Wingwall Brave and search for the missing pieces for their Majesty combo. Now, DifferentFight doesn't know that CardProtagonist has both pieces, but it's still a safe play nonetheless. CardProtagonist is going to be riding his Star Call Trumpeter and likely just committing the attack, which he does here, just to get the damage to go through, keeping it consistent and making him ahead by 2 damage to the 0. Very good play for both players here. CardProtagonist is still ahead of the game. DifferentFight now seeing 2 Phantom Blaster Overlords in addition to the one that he just rode, meaning that even though he didn't see the Phantom Blaster Dragon to ride first for the cross ride bonus, he still has an 11k body and he still has the ability to use his skill for 2 consecutive turns. Badab Kar is going to be calling a follow-up intercept as well, and he's going to be able to use the ability of Phantom Blaster Overlord, tributing the Badab Kar, which he won't be needing anymore, to get rid of the Wingwall Brave and confirm that CardProtagonist will have no way of using that skill and having that resolve. Now he can attack without impunity. There's no worry about the counter blast being used for anything in particular. He does get the first damage to go through, and CardProtagonist not see a damage trigger check here, which means that the second attack can come through, and with no trigger check here, he can now confirm Phantom Blaster Overlord's swing and use the Persona Blast, giving him the 10,000 power bonus to get over the 18k and the additional critical to deal with 2 damage that CardProtagonist really can't stop from happening here. With the Twin Drive being a great 2 and a draw trigger to give him even more pieces, kind of adding insult to injury as he's already ahead now, having gone from being behind 2 damage to suddenly being ahead 2 damage, since CardProtagonist didn't see any heal triggers in that damage check. Very effective play from DifferentFight in that turn, but CardProtagonist isn't really yet to be counted out, as now we can ride the Majesty Lord Blaster and then call both of his Blaster Dart and Blade in order to confirm his combo for Majesty Lord Blaster skill to go off and give himself a permanent 2,000 and a critical and an additional 10,000 power because he was able to resolve the skill in this turn. It's going to make his turn very good, especially since he can use Blaster Blade skill as seen here to retire the intercept, which will allow him to open up his units to attack the Vanguard, and because he chose a 10k intercept to retire, he can now commit his Blaster Dart to board to attack the other intercept without having to call his grade 3s, holding the remaining pieces in his hand. So now Blaster Dart can freely attack the intercept across from him, which will allow Blaster Blade and Majesty Lord Blaster to both get their consecutive attacks as well. And you definitely want to be swinging with Blaster Blade and Dart first, as both units will go to Soul when Majesty Lord uses his ability, so you won't be able to use anything with them otherwise, which means that it's most efficient for CardProtagonist, as you saw here, to make sure you got both of these attacks to go through. Even though it's pushing DifferentFight to 3 damage, meaning that even though he has a critical, if DifferentFight has a PG, a Perfect Guard, which he does, he's going to be able to block the attack. It's still good pressure to have. He gets a draw trigger on that check, getting another Blaster Blade for an intercept for the following turn, and the attack is successfully blocked by the Perfect Guard. Now, generally speaking, the attacker is being seen as being in a solid position in this case because it makes it so you apply enough pressure to get through, but unfortunately, Phantom Blaster Overlord has that inherent critical from its own Persona Blast skill, and CardProtagonist is lacking Perfect Guards of his own. Which means that if DifferentFight can get this attack to go through, succeed in getting the Persona Blast, which you wouldn't have any reason not to, and push these 2 damage, so you can actually close out the game on this second grade 3 turn. So he does get the Persona Blast to go off, pushes himself up to 21 in an additional critical, and goes for the drive check. Check 2. And 2 blinks here, but it doesn't really matter as we see the finishing animation go through. The slash comes in, the first check is a draw trigger, getting him an additional card. And the second check is... it's not a heal. So CardProtagonist is actually being taken out here on the second grade 3 turn. DifferentFight playing in a very efficient game here, utilizing the only 2 turns he needed to start attacking through to deal enough damage and pressure to win this game. We're going to see our CardProtagonist responds in the following game right after this break.
The 3 clans get their new trump cards. Manifest before me. Chrono Dragon next stage. Vanguard the next stage. Available July 10th. Special clan packs too. Bushiroad.
And we are back with game 2 of DifferentFight vs CardProtagonist Vanguard ZERO exhibition run. Now, DifferentFight is coming off of a lot of momentum from winning game 2 in such an efficient fashion, but CardProtagonist is going to be going first this time, which means he's going to have chances to gain resources he may not have had access to before. And I could see DifferentFight wheeling his entire hand back as he's looking for that Blaster Javelin again, while CardProtagonist, having a fairly solid hand, has access to more Blaster Blades than he can count, especially with those Gan slots in hand, which also Surge Blaster Blades. We're going to see how that comes up later on. So as CardProtagonist starts his turn, he'll be riding the Lien, and remember I said that it was better when going first? Now that CardProtagonist is going first, he can use the skill of Wing All Brave to put it back, and then use the skill of Lien to discard and draw a new card because he's still missing Blaster Dark. So now he'll be able to use the skill. I can see him discarding either of his Blaster Blades here. He does discard the Blaster Blade because he already has one in his hand, and both Gan slots have the ability to go back to the deck and grab him another one. And just as Arian Rod did for DifferentFight before, CardProtagonist was able to get a card that was more useful than what he had before, the Perfect Guard. DifferentFight still has an 8,000 power body, but he doesn't have the Blaster Javelin, which is fine because he does have the Blaster Dark still in his hand. So he's going to be passing his turn on that, and CardProtagonist will be starting his next turn, riding his first of his 4 Blaster Blades, or rather his second if you technically count the one he discarded as the second one, or as the first one. We get to see this slick animation since we saw Blaster Dark the first time, and now he has an opportunity to call down. He can call down his K here. K will be getting a power bonus because his Vanguard's a blaster, and he does call down the K. This gives him a chance to have an additional attack, and then if DifferentFight doesn't chuck a trigger here, which DifferentFight does actually chuck a trigger here, CardProtagonist will now have to chuck a trigger of his own to get the attack to go through, where normally if he didn't chuck the trigger he would have just hit the attack, which is perfectly fine. DifferentFight will be staying at 1 damage, so he's not entirely unscathed, but he will be going into his next turn riding his Blaster Dark, and he does have his Phantom Blaster Overlord in his hand ready to go. So we get to see Blaster Dark and Blaster Blade now face off on each player's respective Vanguards. All the intercept the board. Swing at the K, I like this play. Royal Paladins like to have a full board, so swinging at the K makes a lot of sense here to reduce his boosters. He does hit a draw trigger on his drive check, which will be giving him a Badab card, which actually, that's like 3 of his heals out of his deck now. So he's going to be in an interesting spot defensively. We're going to see how that works out for him later. But CardProtagonist not really having a reason not to still ride the Majesty or Blaster despite his general lack of Blaster Dark. He can still get Blaster Blade. He's not entirely in a weird position yet, you know. So he has the option here again to search Blaster Blade. He can call his Alfred to board. He has different lines of play that he can still execute here. That'll be perfectly fine. So it's still a pretty even position both ways around. And he will be using the Gan slot. So this is very important. Gan slot's ability going back to the deck not only gives him access to Blaster Blade, but also recycles his heals. So even though he was drawing his heals, he has ways of making it so they aren't wasted in his hand, which is a luxury that DifferentFight holding 3 Badab cards cannot really afford. The same of he's sitting on these heal triggers and you won't have a way to put them back. But in contrast, Badab Car offers a massive amount of utility. We do see him call the Alfred. We will be seeing the Alfred swing at the 10k then. This makes it so we can still do the necessary damage to DifferentFight to make sure he can apply enough pressure for his next turn. It's super important to make sure you're still forcing the opponent to be put on the back foot for any reason. We're putting back 2 of those, that Perfect Guard and Mirabudu. and the damage will be dealt through with the perfect guard of DifferentFight's own being checked to damage. And now having Wing All Brave able to resolve, he can search the Blaster Dark, and now he's set for his next turn. And even if things were to go really awry for him, he even has a perfect guard as added insurance, so he's guaranteed to go into his next turn with a full combo ready to go this time. DifferentFight, on the other hand, will be riding the Phantom Blaster Dragon this time, which we didn't get to see last time, so we get a little taste of everything this time around. Because he rode Phantom Blaster Dragon, he can call full bout aboard, which he didn't have access to before. He will be calling his first build-out card, which will be letting him superior call a perfect guard, which is not the most fortunate check, but nonetheless, he still has 2 in his hand. He does see the Javelin now, so he has boosters, which is really good to see off of your build-up card checks, is cards that you can call to board that don't waste the space. Because even though you're tributing these units, you still want to make sure that you have a solid lineup for what you're calling the board. You don't want to be stuck calling a grade 2 behind a grade 3, you know? So we will be tributing his 2 build-out cards and his full bow, which is his weakest booster, to retire the grade 3, reducing the amount of attackers that CardProtagonist has on his board. So he will be calling a second build-out card, which will allow him to superior call a Phantom Blaster Overlord, giving him 2 free attacks to go through. He doesn't have to commit anything else here, so he can actually just move straight to battle phase. Actually, he has 2 critical on his Phantom Blaster Dragon, so should he be able to push this damage through, which this first one is guaranteed. He didn't have a chance to put himself to 12,000 power with the double blaster combo on his previous turn. He has a magic number, which is when you have a number that for your column that is matching or 5,000 increments greater than the power of the Vanguard, which means he's going to be able to get all of these attacks to go through but the Vanguard swing, which is pushing the perfect guard. But because of DifferentFight's position, it's actually better off here than we saw last time the perfect guard was procced by an early crit, because he already has a full board basically and a hand of 2 perfect guards with follow-up plays on his next turn. Now CardProtagonist is going to be responding by grabbing another one of his blaster blades, which again, more importantly, will be allowing him to put his heals back into his deck. Which means that now he can call his blade and his dark to board. And again, this is another scenario where he doesn't really have a reason not to use Blaster Blade's skill. He's not really using the counter blast for anything else, but at the same time, he might want to save it for something else later on. So we'll see what he decides to do here. And I like that he's giving that some thought. He's really chewing on that, making sure he has it ready to go. He does decide to pass on the skill, which I totally respect. He calls Bedivere to board, and he will be calling Blaster Dark as well, as he needs to execute the combo. Now Blaster Blade will likely be swinging at his build-out card. Bedivere has the option of swinging at either the Vanguard or at his Overlord to utilize the 12k power that it has before Magilor goes in for a attempted finishing blow for this turn. So yes, Blaster Blade does confirm his attack to go through. And then Bedivere will be attacking the Vanguard to deal the first set of damage, and then no damage trigger check here. Actually funny that both games he checked Masquerade on a damage check before swinging with Magisteel or Blaster. That's funny. But he will be using the skill. He goes up to 22,000 power and gains the additional critical. And now we'll be doing his drive checks, hitting a draw trigger, which is going to give him another Blaster Dark. So in case he needed to do it again, he has that option now. And a Lien to attempt to deal 2 damage, but because he's at 3, once again, DifferentFight will be pushing up the perfect guard here. So this is actually a fairly solid position for CardProtagonist here. He's forcing these perfect guards out of his hand, but he doesn't have a lot else to work with, so we're going to see how this game goes. Skipping his ride, he wants to be sitting on Phantom Blaster Dragon, but he can't use his skill because he only has 1 counter blast. So we're going to be seeing exactly what DifferentFight decides to do to respond to this previous turn. He calls the Aryan Rod. I wonder if he's going to be filtering here. He's going to be calling instead, and he will be going straight to battle phase, attacking the rear guard, the Bedivere, and then he'll be attacking the Vanguard here. Drive check, check 1, check 2, and it is a draw trigger, so he has another chance, another leads at life here as he gets more pieces in his hand for his next turn. Damage checks a Star Call Trumpeter, which is not a trigger, more importantly, which means he can get this attack to go through. Luckily for him, he built the number in such a way that since he checked the draw trigger, it was working out regardless. But CardProtagonist checks his first heal here, which allows him to stay at 4 damage and pushes him out of being in the 5 damage threshold that would have applied so much pressure in DifferentFight's following turn. DifferentFight now has to push him to 5 damage first and then start popping the heal triggers, or the perfect guards, due to his lack of criticals right now. So now CardProtagonist has the option here. He can call both of his units to board, kind of maintain his intercepts. DifferentFight doesn't have intercepts of his own. So at this point, if he ends up using the counterblast to retire a unit, it's just to force DifferentFight to call other units from his hand to board to replace those attackers and keep pressure going. He does use a skill. He will be retiring the Phantom Blaster Overlord. Absolutely respectable play. Calling the Blaster Dark, again, likely just to keep the intercepts on board. Just to make sure that he has further insurance for his Vanguard. I like that. So now he can just go straight in for the attack. Just cut straight through. Doesn't need to use the skill here. Can keep his intercepts. Hits the draw trigger. Gets another booster. And in the second check, another Lien. So that's just gonna force another perfect guard out of DifferentFight's hand. And this is why I keep mentioning that that's so important, that you're at 3 damage and you pop those perfect guards early. DifferentFight is now officially out of perfect guards. He has taken 1 to damage, had 2 of them go off, and then Superior called 1 to board. So now he can he can attack the, well, actually he has the option to attack either. He can attack the Vanguard, which he does do, or he could have attacked the rear guard to keep his opponents from having a full board, which would have been just as important. But in this case, pushing him to 4 damage, I absolutely respect, as now he is forced to attack both of his rear guards and attempt to deal the damage as previously mentioned. But with that perfect guard insurance, CardProtagonist is in a very good position right now. Now, DifferentFight did draw his Overlord, but since he doesn't have any, he just damage checked 1 of them, and he's Superior called 1 as well. So he can't really do the Persona Blast because he doesn't have another copy of the card that needs to Persona Blast to do it. So he's likely just going to stay on his Phantom Blaster Dragon. I can see wanting to be on a 13,000 base, but I think in this case, it's better for him to have the additional attackers on board, maybe to circumvent the fact that he is missing that other piece of Overlord to have its skill activate here. Because he does have 2 counterblasts, so he's still able to get the critical from Phantom Blaster Dragon's skill instead of relying on Overlord, and he does choose to skip the ride because of it. So he'll be using this skill, discarding the Blaster Javelin, which he has plenty of boosters, so he doesn't need it, and he draws another Badab card. So he's also out of heals now, which is a very difficult spot to be in for sure. So he will be using his skill to retire 1 of the intercepts from CardProtagonist's board and get himself the Affirmation critical. Which means now he can call Masquerade, which goes to 12,000, allows him to hit the Vanguard cleanly, and then his other rear guard can attack. Oh, and he will be choosing to do that instead, which is fine. Either way, the result would have been the same. So he goes straight in for the attack on the Vanguard. Twin Drives does hit another draw trigger, draws him into the main. He's out of perfect guard, so not particularly isn't going to help him as much here, as CardProtagonist does successfully block the attack and only takes the 1 damage here. And DifferentFight's not really minding about not being able to heal out of this, while CardProtagonist casually heals again, sitting with cancel outs. Now this is why. That's why that was so important. He put those cancel outs back in his deck, and he just checked 2 of them on his damage check, keeping him at 4 damage this entire time. He hasn't passed 4 damage. Now CardProtagonist, all he really needs to do to seal out game here is call both of his units, swing at the Masquerade, and then confirm Magilord for game, because there's no heals and there's no perfect guards left. This is a complete inverse of what we saw the first time, when DifferentFight was the one sitting on the Vanguard that could gain the inherent critical and swing at the opponent who had no perfect guards to block the attack. But in this case, it might even be harder because he doesn't even have to heal the check. And just to add more spice, he checks a 3rd heal trigger, keeping them down to 3 damage. So even if there was a way for DifferentFight to survive this swing, it's still tough cookies for him to do so. And his last check is not a heal, as we know. So CardProtagonist does win that game. Very beautifully executed use of resources, reversing the tables here. And now we're moving into game 3 to see what DifferentFight does in response to this game after this break.
星空を隠した見つけてと誰かがささやくいつもと違う目覚めの時世界が始まる音を聞いた東大の足元に紛れたほころびのかけら探してみよう過去今未来地図広げて飛び込め不思議の向こうここからだそう僕らはまだ Day by Day 長い旅の途中さ恋そうのげてみようかさあバラバラになった世界じゃ常識も重量も忘れることから始めよう Alright 絶対の保証はないでも確かに前に進んでるんじゃない繋がったらバズるは待ってくクラクラに浮かぶ現実も今僕らはバンガード熱く巡りゆるき深みしよう何も怖くない行こうぜ心のナビゲートは
悪役とカードファイトするなんてそんなのありえないし。
And welcome back to Game 3 of Different Fight and CardProtagonist Vanguard ZERO exhibition set. So CardProtagonist is now the one running with the momentum, as Different Fight won the first game, but CardProtagonist really cleaned up that second game. It was really, really good, pushing past all the perfect guards and really taking advantage of Different Fight's lack of resources overall. Different Fight's actually going to be starting out this game since he did lose the last one, and in this regard, he is currently missing all the pieces of his right chain here, but he does get to see 2 overlords and 2 intercepts. Missing a grade 1, all he needs to do is draw a blaster javelin and he's good to go. Oh my gosh, the power of Psyqualia compels you as you draw the blaster javelin, ride it up to be an 8,000 power unit, get the blaster dark to complete the right chain, and now he has the Phantom Blaster Dragon and 2 overlords, so he's completely set for his grade 3 runs. CardProtagonist, on the other hand, looks like he's going to be riding the K here so we can keep the Lien in the back, and we'll still be calling the Wing All Brave kind of Vanguard. That's generally fairly standard, especially since you're going to be using Lien's skill, so you won't be sitting on it anyway. And the question is, what is going to be discarding this time around? Will it be the Palamedes? And it is a Palamedes, so he's going to be discarding that to draw a perfect guard, which is going to be great for him. He has the option of Ganslot once again. That's to do exactly what we saw last time. But he'll be attacking and hitting a draw trigger. And with that, he has a Star Call Trumpeter, the Blaster Blade, and the Matchstore Blaster, which means he's pretty set as well, so long as he can get the 2 Counter Blasts to go through to get the Blaster Dark. But Different Fight, of course, having every right he needs, can just slap that Blaster Dark right on the board, cut straight to it, and get right to the chase. Now he has his 2, he can call some intercepts to board. He has the option to do that. He likely won't though. I see him still hovering over the idea of not committing. I don't think he wants to give CardProtagonist the opportunity to search out the Blaster Dark, which again, Different Fight doesn't know he's missing it, but it's still an option he doesn't want to give out. So he does pass a turn. He does send it back to CardProtagonist, who will be responding with his own avatar, riding up, I can see, because he definitely wants to hold on to the Star Call Trumpeter, and he has other ways of getting Blaster Blade. I can see him hovering over it. So he can search the Blaster Blade with Ganslot and then follow up by searching for Blaster Dark with Star Call Trumpeter. Which means in this case, it definitely is optimal for him to ride the Blaster Blade. So we do have the rivals staring each other down once again. But he's actually in a fairly solid spot. He doesn't need to call the Trumpeter here. He actually doesn't really need to call anything here, unless he really wants to call the Mitabidu so he can start pushing forward pressure. But then, if he doesn't check a trigger on his attack, he won't be able to hit because Different Fight has that 10,000 power body that we were talking about before. So he does decide to discard Mitabidu instead and just go straight for the Cutthroat Swing, drive checking a PG, which is not a big deal, to do the damage here, and push himself at the same position as we saw the first time. The difference is that this time, Different Fight's not going to be riding Phantom Blaster Overlord and applying that kind of pressure. He's going to be riding Phantom Blaster Dragon and going straight to it. You finally get a completed right chain going all the way up from full bow straight to Overlord, and we'll be calling the full bow to the back of the Vanguard this time, because now we can call one of it intercept, maybe 2. He has the options on the table. He's able to start swinging and dealing damage with impunity. He does not need to call in any more units to use his skill. He doesn't have to put out a card to give him free units to tribute. So he's not really going to be getting rid of the Vanguard Brave this time. But seeing as he doesn't play crits in his deck, even if he drive checks a trigger here, which he does, he drive checks a draw trigger here. Even though he drove to check a trigger, it's still going to make it so he only has 2 damage, which means in CardProtagonist's following turn, he has to choose between whether or not he wants to save the Vanguard Brave or if he wants to use the Starcard Trumpeter to directly get the Blaster Dart. Look at this massive hand from both of these players. He does ride the Vantage to a Blaster, and he again does have the opportunity to go into the Blaster Dart, and he can switch the Blaster Blade. So we're going to see him kind of execute that play. I know I'm running through because this is such a big turn for CardProtagonist. There's a lot of opportunities on the table here to apply some very, very good pressure and kind of repeat what he did in the previous game. Let's see how he decides to play this out. So yes, he does indeed decide to go back, grab the Blaster Blade, add it to his hand, put that heal back into the deck. Doesn't really need to use the other one. Can if he wants to. If he wants to grab the Blaster Blade, he has an option. So we're going to be seeing him as he's kind of hovering over the options he has available to him. Whether he's going to use the ability of Blaster Blade to retire the intercept. He's hovering over the Starcard Trumpeter. Looks like he might be committing to call it down. And he does. He is going to be using the skill of Starcard Trumpeter to call that Blaster Dart to board. That also means that he's not going to be calling down K this turn because he needs to have his board open to call the Blaster Blade down instead. So I like that play. I very much like that play. Call down the Blaster Blade. This means that he now has the free opportunity to attack the rear guard with the Starcard Trumpeter. He does decide to use a Gantslot to get the heal back in the deck and filter out one Blaster Blade from his deck to make it easier to see the heal later on. Overall, great plays coming in. Starcard Trumpeter will attack the rear. And then since Blaster Dart can't attack the Vanguard, he can just go straight in with Majesty Lord, use the skill, get the bonus, and then deal 2 unstoppable damage since he's also not playing criticals in his deck. So he drive checks a draw, another beautiful draw, gets another Blaster Dart, so once again he has both Blade and Dart for intercepts on the next turn, and another Lian. Lian just likes to be the second drive check in the set, it looks like. So 2 unrespawnable damage here. DifferentFight does check a draw trigger though, and he does see another Phantom Blaster Overlord. So we have a similar situation to game 1, where he's sitting on 3 Phantom Blaster Overlords, and he does get to complete the cross ride this time, which means he gets a 13,000 power Vanguard permanently, now stepping a cut above what Majesty Lord normally sits at. Now with the Masquerade having the option to actually swing at the Vanguard here, since he's going to be attributing the full bow in order to retire the intercept. Excellent, excellent use of resources here. So now he has a few options on the table here. He's hovering over, calling down one of the intercepts. He does decide he might be wanting to do that. He does decide to commit because he definitely wants additional protection here. He has 2 Perfect Guard Maclears in his hand, but there's no reason to have them be used if they don't need to be. So now we can attack with the Vanguard, pitch the Phantom Blaster Overlord to force a Perfect Guard out of CardProtagonist's hand, and apply that extra critical, now putting him in a similar position to what CardProtagonist had against him in game 2. So the first Perfect Guard has been triggered in this game, which means that now we can pass his turn with 2 intercepts comfortably on board, as CardProtagonist prepares his next turn, sitting on Palamedes here, in his hand rather. He has the option here too, but he's probably just going to call the K, which he does commit the K to board. And we're hovering over. It looks like he's going to be calling the Blaster Dart rather, to have an additional intercept on board as well. And we're hovering over here. He's kind of deciding what he wants to do. Looks like he's going to be using the Lien, discarding the Majesty Lord to draw into a Gantslot, which he's kind of hovering over. I think he has 1 Blaster Blade left in his deck, so he can use the Gantslot if he really needs to. In the meantime, he's hovering over another unit to call the board, and it will be the Bedivere. So now he has both Bedivere and K, so he can attack both rear guards, and then confirm an attack on the Vanguard to force out the first of DifferentFight's Perfect Guards. as he commits his swing.
ヴァンガードにアタック
Drive check
フ
1
ァーストチェック
and check
セ
2.
カンドチェック
Okay, and again, Lian being second drive check. It's just hilariously bizarre. But yes, Macleary will be procced here, so the first perfect guard from DifferentFight has been used. Both players now sitting on one perfect guard apiece. As DifferentFight goes into the turn, being ahead by advantage only because it's his turn. He can actually apply that pressure now. He does have an domain in his hand.
頼む
He has the opportunity to use that skill to discard his grade 2 and draw 2 additional cards. The main is so good for Shadow Paladin. Shadow Paladin being very well known, at least in this meta, for being one of the most resource heavy decks in the game. Very much able to manipulate their presence on board at all times and constantly try to stay ahead by retiring key units instead of just all units and drawing more cards and maintaining pressure at all times. So the main being a very good tool for that. He does attack both intercepts here. He does attack the Vanguard as well, and he will be using the skill again, no reason not to. He needs to force that perfect guard out of CardProtagonist's hand. He does gain the critical and drive checks. Masquerade.
セカンドチェック
Alright, so no trigger checks here, but again, not really necessary. A heal or draw would have been good, but he's still in a fine position here. He's got 2 intercepts still on board, and CardProtagonist still has to commit a lot on his end if he wants to make this happen. CardProtagonist is, a DifferentFight rather, is sitting on very minimal resources though, because once CardProtagonist finishes his turn, no matter what goes on here, he's gonna be able to get rid of both of DifferentFight's intercepts and force the perfect guard with Majesty Lord's attack. So CardProtagonist here, searching for his last Blaster Blade and getting his last heal back in the deck. Now hovering over. He has the option to call Bedivere as well, but he doesn't really need to be very decisive about who he wants to call this time around, because all he needs to do at this point is have units on board that can attack the intercepts. That's just the absolute key to what he needs to do, and it doesn't really matter how he decides to do it, so long as he has himself set the next turn.
スキル発動
Because he won't be needing to boost with it, he's going to be using Lian's skill, and he sees the Gan slot again, which means, well, if he draw check, he will not be able to heal from it either in any way, but it's still kind of funny to see that he drew the Gan slot again. So he's going to be stopping it on board. Oh my goodness. It's funny because DifferentFight has public awareness of the fact that the Blaster Blades are gone, because the 2 that he had in his hand were both searched by Gan slots in previous turns, including this one. He does attack with the Gan slot for the first swing. Blaster Blade will be committing his attack onto the other intercept, and then Majesty Lord, as aforementioned, will be confirming his attack on the Vanguard, and he will still hit a heal, which means he would have checked a double heal and neither would have gone off.
セカンドチェ
And he
ック
hits another Lian. It's kind of a running gag at this point that Lian is just the second drive check for these twin drives for CardProtagonist here in these last 2 games. It's really hilarious. But look at DifferentFight's position here. He has 1 card in his hand, 1 rear guard, and a Vanguard, while CardProtagonist has 2 additional intercepts in his hand, and DifferentFight has no way of applying any kind of crit pressure to take advantage of the fact that CardProtagonist has no perfect guards in his hand. So DifferentFight's gonna have to go for a fairly conservative turn here, as he just kind of attacks the rear. He doesn't play crit, so there's no reason for him not to commit the attack with his Vanguard, but he does see a heal trigger, which is super key for him to be able to stay in this game, and a draw trigger, which might have been enough to put him back in the game here. He sees a Badab card, which is not that big of a deal, honestly. It's not that big of a deal. He gives him the option to be able to call more units to his board in his following turn, and he's deciding on whether he's going to attack the Vanguard or the rear. He's hovering over Gan slot. I'm deciding, is there a reason for him to want to commit this swing? He does. So the play that I can see DifferentFight going for here as to why he did that could be that he wants to make sure that he has low enough damage that since he has to take this attack from Majesty Lord, if he can heal out, he'll be able to do so. Because if he has more or less damage than CardProtagonist, he wouldn't be able to heal. So attacking the rear guard accomplishes 2 goals here. It makes it so his attack goes through and removes one of CardProtagonist's units to once again force him to commit more cards to board. And it prevents CardProtagonist from being behind in damage to allow him to heal, or DifferentFight to heal if he needs to do so. So CardProtagonist is calling the Bedivere here. and he will be just pushing up the K instead of calling the Blaster Blade. And I can see him not really have a reason to really worry about that. Honestly, DifferentFight would have to have drawn into Phantom Blaster Overlord. It's the only way that he can close out the game now, is if he draws Phantom Blaster Overlord to deal the additional crit pressure and still have a unit to attack with Badapkar. So he's going to be attacking here. He does have the critical. He's going to be taking his damage, so this not able to hit though because of Phantom Blaster Dragon having 18,000 power. So he actually isn't going to be taking the damage here. I definitely misspoke, but more importantly, are you seeing this? Are you seeing the fact that he drew his Phantom Blaster Overlord? I was literally saying that the only way he could win the game is if he draws in the Phantom Blaster Overlord. The one card in his entire deck that he needed to be able to win the game here, and he was able to draw it. Unfortunately, he was able to sit down on his cross-fight number to be able to be at 18,000 power, so he didn't have to take that damage from last turn. But now, because of this beautiful play, he has the option to retire the opponent's rear guard. CardProtagonist checks a heal. He checks a heal, but it won't matter because he has the Phantom Blaster Overlord from his hand that he can now use his skill to deal the additional damage and push for game, despite the fact that CardProtagonist had everything going in this game. This is the most Psyqualia moment. If CardProtagonist doesn't see a heal here, and I think that was actually his last heal too, which only makes it worse. And that is game. That's insane. That's a game. DifferentFight brought that game from top decking the Phantom Blaster Overlord. I'm speechless right now. What an excellent set from between both of these players, playing every single interaction out as well as they possibly could. Beautiful set of plays. I can't say much more. Excellent plays from both of these players.
Well, thank you all for tuning in to today's featured match. Before we go, I'd like to let everyone know that Bushiroad will be having the Summerfest 2020. Summerfest will take place from July 1st to the 31st and will include online tournaments hosted on their official Bushiroad Remote Fight Discord channel. Bushiroad will also be having a Vanguard ZERO Invitational tournament that will be showcasing 8 community leaders and content creators. You can catch DifferentFight and CardProtagonist again in that tournament. In addition to the Invitational, Bushiroad will be hosting a Vanguard ZERO Online Championship where everyone has an opportunity to participate and win awesome prizes. Please head over to Bushiroad's official website and social media channels for more details. You can also check out my page, XStatykArts, on Facebook. I draw map designs and make artwork using markers in a traditional style, and have a few of my pieces behind me. Feel free to go check out some of my work at XStatykArts on Facebook. That's going to do it for us here. Now, on behalf of myself and everyone at Bushiroad, I want to thank you all for tuning in to today's Vanguard ZERO featured match. Be sure to check out Vanguard ZERO on the Android and iOS store today.
Final turn!